Once you complete today's lesson, you will be able to solve any quadratic equation that you run into. You'll be able to solve all of them. In order to do that, we need to derive the quadratic formula. So the first thing I'll do is to derive the quadratic formula for you. Let's start. We're going to start with the standard form of the quadratic equation. Ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. The first thing I'm going to do is to divide every term by a. Or another way of doing it, I'm going to divide both sides by a. Now if I divide ax squared by a, I get x squared. If I divide b over bx by a, I get b over ax. If I divide c by a, I get c over a. 0 divided by a is 0. So we divided both sides by a. Now I'm going to add the opposite of c over a to both sides. So if I add the opposite of c over a to both sides, I get x squared plus b over ax is equal to the opposite of c over a. So the opposite of c over a will simply cancel out this c over a when I add it to the left side, and 0 plus a negative c over a is a negative c over a on the right side. Now we want to complete the square. To complete the square, I need to take half of the linear coefficient and square it. So what I need to do is to take half of b over a and square it. And now if I take half of b over a, I'll get b over 2a. b over 2a, quantity squared is b squared over 4a squared. Now all I'm doing mathematically is adding b squared over 4a squared to both sides. Now look at what we have on the left. Look at the right. I've simply added the same thing to both sides, which was b squared over 4a squared. Now you might wonder, where does b squared over 4a squared come from? Well, I did tell you, but now I'm going to show you. What I do is, I take half of the linear coefficient, and half of b over a would be b over 2a. 1 times b is b, 2 times a is 2a. Then I square it. b squared would be b squared, and then it would be 2 squared times a squared on the bottom. And of course 2 squared is 4, so I have b squared over 4a squared. That's what I add to both sides. So that's how I came up with b squared over 4a squared. Now once I've completed the square, then I can factor the left member. You say to yourself, what can you multiply by itself to get x? The answer is x. What can you multiply to get b squared over 4a squared? The answer is b over 2a. So the left side, x squared plus b over ax plus b squared over 4a squared, can be factored into x plus b over 2a times x plus b over 2a. Now on the right side, I need to get the common denominator. The common denominator between a and 4a squared is 4a squared. So I needed to multiply the a by 4a. If I multiply the bottom by 4a, I have to multiply the top by 4a. Now the opposite of c times 4a is a negative 4ac. a times 4a is 4a squared. So by multiplying the numerator and denominator by 4a, I get the common denominator for both fractions. Now I can rewrite the left member as x plus b over 2a quantity squared. If I'm using it as a factor 2 times, then it's a square. And I have the common denominator, so I can keep the denominator and add the numerators to get b squared minus 4ac. Now I'm going to apply my principal root theorem to take the square root of both sides. The square root of x plus b over 2a quantity squared is just x plus b over 2a. Now this is all just a constant, So I have to write this plus or minus the square root of that constant. B plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. Now, what I need to do is to add a negative b over 2a to both sides. If I add it to the left side, I simply will cancel out this b over 2a and be left with x. If I add it to the right side, I'll have a negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. Now what I need to do is to take the square root of the 4a squared. And I can write it as opposite of b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. The square root of 4a squared is 2a. Now I have the common denominator, so I can keep the denominator and add the numerators to get x is the opposite of b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And this is the quadratic formula. One can use the quadratic formula to solve any quadratic equation. It always works. You will be using the quadratic formula frequently. You can use it to solve any quadratic equation that you have. There will be several that can be solved only with the formula. Now you have a choice. You can either derive the formula every time you need it, and I showed you how to do that. I derived it for you. Or you can memorize the formula. Choice is yours, whichever you'd rather do. Now I'm going to give you another starred expression. Now be sure you put this one on your study sheet and you go over it frequently. To solve any quadratic equation, that's any of them, the first thing you do is you put it in standard form, which is going to be ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Right member is 0, left member is in descending order. The second thing is you identify a, b, and c. Now a is the coefficient of x squared, b is the coefficient of x, and c is your constant. The third step is to substitute into the quadratic formula. X is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. The fourth step is to evaluate the formula, and you use your order of operations to evaluate it. Once you get it evaluated, you give the answers. Now for this class, I want you to approximate irrational answers to 100ths. I want you to write complex answers in a plus bi form.